Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the District 5 December Crime and Safety Meeting. I am Captain David Feldmeyer. I am the Commanding Officer of District 5, Milwaukee Police. Thank you all for joining us. Unfortunately, we are virtual still as we are in the midst of the pandemic lockdown for the holiday season. Hopefully, just right around the corner, we will be able to be in person again, and you can all join us in person. But until then, you have to bear with me speaking into a camera. So today's agenda, we have a guest speaker, Lieutenant Michael Ball from Milwaukee Fire Department. He will be speaking about some fire safety. We'll have some crime and safety tips regarding robberies and garage burglaries and auto thefts and some things to think about and some tips and ways to kind of keep yourself safe. We will talk about some of the crime trends that have been happening in the month of December. And of course, as always, we have the Collins Agreement, the ACLU agreement that you feel free to email and ask questions about. Unfortunately, we don't have the opportunity to do an interactive session regarding that, but you can always email and I will try and answer those questions as best I can. So without further ado, I will introduce our guest speaker, Lieutenant Michael Ball from the Milwaukee Fire Department, who will speak to you about fire safety.
Hi folks, I'm Lieutenant Mike Ball from the Milwaukee Fire Department, and I was asked to speak with you a little bit today about some fire safety issues, especially in this holiday season. So I will share my contact information at the end of the presentation so that if anybody has further questions, I'm happy to answer anything that I can. All right, so today we're going to speak about 4 different things: smoke alarms, holiday fire safety, heating safety, and finally cooking. All right, so we'll get into it. First thing, smoke alarms. I start with that because if you don't do anything else, please ensure that you have a working smoke alarm in your home. Ideally, you want several, and we'll go and get into where they should be located, but we need to have working smoke alarms in your home because most fires happen at night when most people are sleeping, and often I'll have people tell me, oh, I'll wake up, I'll smell the smoke, or I'll hear it, and it doesn't work that way. Carbon monoxide is emitted when there is a large fire and you're actually going to a deeper sleep. So you need something to wake you up and your family up so that you can get out of the house quickly, and that's why it's so important to have that working smoke alarm. So number 1, make sure they work, and you should be checking those monthly. At minimum, they should be located at least one outside of your bedroom. A lot of times people put them in the hallway outside their bedroom. And ideally, you want them inside the bedroom and outside in the hallway. In addition, you want them on every level of the house. And if somebody's sleeping on other levels of the house, you want multiple alarms there as well. We always recommend sleeping with the door closed so that if the fire occurs in a different part of the home, the door being closed will keep that smoke and the fire out of your bedroom and keep you safer for a little longer until you can get to the window and get some help from the fire department. All right. The other thing I wanted to mention was there's a 10-year ordinance that was put out by the city maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And basically it's a requirement for all people who own a home or are landlords that you have a smoke alarm that has a 10-year sealed battery in the smoke alarm. And that is just, it's a battery that can't be changed. And so when it starts beeping to indicate that the battery is getting low, you actually need to replace the whole thing. The nice thing about it is that they are supposed to last 10 years. Sometimes they make it 8 or 9, but they're supposed to last a long time. But it's still important that you check it every month to ensure that it's working correctly. All right, enough about smoke alarms. Holiday safety. First thing is, for many of you, obviously, we're going to be purchasing Christmas trees. If you have live trees, just some safety tips very quickly. Make sure that it's watered. Check that every day. Obviously, we don't want to dry a Christmas tree in your home. Keep it 3 feet from any heat source. Obviously, that no explanation is needed there. If you have lights on the tree, which most people do, that's fine. Just make sure that the lights, before you put them up, that they're not frayed or damaged in any way. If they are, obviously throw those out. And at night, when we're going to bed or when we're leaving the house, make sure that you are unplugging those lights as well. When we are disposing of the tree, make sure that those trees can get pretty dry. Obviously, they're not in water any longer. Make sure that you're storing it away from anything flammable and certainly away from the house. Okay, sometimes we see people coming by, and you see a Christmas tree, and it's tempting for people to stop and light up the tree. So just be cognizant of that and store it in a safe place, well away from anything that can burn. As far as, one last thing I forgot to mention about the Christmas tree, as far as placement in the home, make sure that it's not in front of any exit to the house. Again, that's pretty self-explanatory. You want to keep it in a place where it's not going to hinder a quick escape in case you need to get in the home quickly. As far as candles, candles are a big source of holiday fires, and while they're fine to use, we always encourage you to consider using the battery-operated candles. There's some on the market that look very realistic, like they're actual candles, but they're much safer. So we certainly encourage you to look at those if you're not using those already. If you are using candles, obviously, just be careful that they're not near anything that's flammable. And if you are leaving the room, and certainly if you're leaving the house, but even leaving the room, be sure that you're extinguishing the candle. Okay. And lastly, if you have cats which like to jump up on furniture, or even small dogs sometimes, just be cognizant of that, especially for breaking any candles as well. Okay. All right, heating safety. So there's a couple things. Obviously, we always recommend getting your furnace checked every year. Make sure that it's working properly. If you have a cracked flue, that can lead to carbon monoxide poisoning. We'll talk about that here briefly. But just make sure that it's working properly, and always recommend getting that checked out by a professional. If you have a fireplace, which I do, I burn almost every day. I love a fresh fire in the fireplace. It's really imperative that we are getting that fireplace cleaned every year. Obviously, creosote can build up in a fireplace, and that can start a fire in your fireplace. So if you're using a fireplace on any regular basis, make sure that you are getting that cleaned and checked out by a professional before you start burning fires in the fireplace. The other thing is fireplace safety. Obviously, make sure you have a screen across the front for any members that come out, that they're not going to come out onto the floor and start anything on fire. Regarding portable heaters, just like a fireplace, they should be a 3-foot safety zone around the heater. Make sure that you tell the small children that that's also a kid-free zone, that they're not allowed to go within 3 feet of the heater. Obviously, you want to make sure that there's no anything flammable around the heater, such as newspapers or anything like that. And when we are going to bed at night, we should be unplugging those. Or leaving the house, just like a Christmas tree, we should be unplugging those. Throw an extra blanket on your bed if it's cold at night, but do not run the space heater when you're sleeping. Okay. And then we use an oven. We go into homes each winter on EMS calls oftentimes, and we'll see people using the oven as a supplementary source of heat. Sometimes people use it as their own source of heat, and I encourage you, there's been some situations where their furnace breaks down and people don't have the financial means to get it repaired, and they'll use the oven. Please call. There's several agencies locally that you can call that will help with situations like that and get you the help that you need, but we don't want you using the oven. First of all, it's obviously dangerous to any small children as far as burns. Using the oven, emitting that type of heat on a constant basis for long periods of time can certainly increase your CO levels, your carbon monoxide levels in your home, and that's another danger. And obviously, you just don't want anything that can emit that type of heat to just be exposed like that. Something can easily fall in the oven and start a fire as well. So please refrain from using the oven to heat your home. Regarding carbon monoxide, I touched on that briefly. Carbon monoxide is an invisible, odorless gas. They often call it the silent killer. And it is emitted from anything that burns a fossil fuel, and the burning process is not complete. So that could be a fireplace, it could be a faulty furnace, it could be someone running a gas-fired heater. You're supposed to have adequate ventilation, but if you don't, that can lead to carbon monoxide. It could be a faulty water heater. If you have any type of gas appliances in your home, or like I said, a fireplace, that can emit carbon monoxide if the burning process is not complete. So it's very imperative that you have carbon monoxide detectors. If you have just one, have it on the floor that you sleep on. Ideally, you want them on all levels of the house. Oftentimes people will think the best place to put it is the basement, which we certainly recommend, but you want to be able to hear it. And if it's at night when you're sleeping and you have a high rate of carbon monoxide in the home, you want to be woken up, and you may not hear that alarm if it's in the basement and you're sleeping on the first or second floor. So again, ideally have carbon monoxide detectors on all floors of the home. But if you have just one carbon monoxide detector, make sure it's on the floor that you sleep on. Carbon monoxide detectors, unlike smoke alarms, can be mounted anywhere. We recommend, something that, I have one at home that just plugs into the wall socket, so you don't even have to worry about changing any batteries, but like a smoke alarm, you should still be checking that on a monthly basis to ensure that it's working properly. The carbon monoxide detectors go off at a very low rate of carbon monoxide. Now, that doesn't mean that you can ignore it. Obviously, if the alarm goes off, you need to get everybody out of the house and call 911. We normally recommend, if you can, keep the doors and the windows closed as long as obviously everybody's out of the house. The fire department will get there, and we have small carbon monoxide detectors, and that will help us to more quickly trace the source of the carbon monoxide, whether it's a furnace or something else. So again, the biggest thing is just to get everybody out, call 911, wait for us to get there, and we'll check it out, okay? I think that's everything on the carbon monoxide detectors. The last thing I want to touch on is cooking safety. Cooking fires are the #1 most common house fire we get in the city of Milwaukee, and nationwide. It's the most common fire there is. The leading cause of cooking fires is unattended cooking. So, always say, whenever you're cooking in the kitchen, make sure that you are in the kitchen if you have anything on the stove top. If you are baking something, roasting something in the oven, we're not necessarily, we're not saying that you have to stay in the oven for that, or stay in the kitchen for that, but make sure you use a timer and bring that with you, just so you don't forget that when it's done cooking, you can go and check on it. If you are sleepy, if you've been drinking alcohol, if you're taking any medications that cause drowsiness, we do not recommend you cooking anything on the stove. It's too easy to obviously fall asleep, forget that it's on the stove or in the oven, and obviously a fire starts. If a fire starts in the oven, the best thing you can do is, obviously turn off the oven and keep the oven closed, and call 911, get everybody out of the house. If you feel safe enough to use a fire extinguisher, if we have one handy, which we always recommend have one handy in the kitchen, again, call 911, get us coming. If you feel comfortable enough to use the fire extinguisher, go ahead and use it. But make sure your back is always to the exit so that you can quickly get out of the kitchen if the fire extinguisher is not able to extinguish the fire. Again, make sure you get everybody out of the house first. Make sure you get 911 coming before you even attempt to extinguish the fire. The other thing I want to mention quick is always have a lid handy when you're cooking anything on the stove. A lid just makes extinguishing the fire very simple. If it's contained in the pan, you simply slide the lid on top of the pan or the pot, and the fire will be starved of oxygen and will die. So always have a lid handy when you're cooking. Last thing before I forget, I always forget to mention this, and it's so important. When you are leaving the house, whether it's a kitchen fire or any other type of fire, close the doors. It's so important because that will help compartmentalize the fire and keep it from traveling to other rooms. If you are going outside, it's going to keep that fresh air from coming into the home and feeding the fire. So it's so important. Or whether you're leaving your bedroom in the middle of the night because your smoke alarm went off and there's a fire in the home, close the bedroom doors. By closing the doors, that helps, again, keeps the fires contained, hopefully to the room of origin, as we say. So I hope this was helpful. I know you've heard probably a lot of this before, but it bears mentioning because we go to fires almost every day in the city of Milwaukee for a variety of different reasons. So if we can be more safe, and honesty is a good thing for our community. If you have any questions that I didn't cover, you need some clarification about something that I mentioned today, or just anything related to the fire department, please reach out to me and give me a call. I'll be happy to help you. My phone number is 414-397-8494. Again, 414-397-8494. Thanks so much for your time, folks, and happy holidays. Take care.
Thank you again to Lieutenant Michael Ball of the Milwaukee Fire Department. Some great tips regarding fires, especially during this holiday season, and especially during our winter months when we spend a lot more time indoors, spend a lot more time cooking indoors, and we're going to have a lot more people around and all of those types of things that could lead to some mishaps with fire. So thank you to the fire department and Lieutenant Michael Ball. Now we're going to go over some tips regarding robberies. Obviously, we are in the holiday season. This is the time for a lot of people to be out and about, carrying cash, having their credit cards on them, buying gifts, going to stores, things of that nature. And we just want to share some things to kind of help people keep themselves safe when it comes to that type of crime. Remember, the most important thing to remember is that the items that an individual might be asking for or might be taking from you can be replaced. You yourself, physically, you cannot. If you get hurt seriously or even worse, those are things that are very hard to overcome. So when faced with a situation like that, and hopefully nobody ever has to, but we recommend if the person's asking for your wallet, you give the wallet up. If they're asking for your keys, you give the keys up. Presents that you have in your hand, those types of things, give them up to preserve your safety. And then call 911 or get yourself to a public place, a store, ask for help. One of the tips that we have listed here is instead of calling just for help, call out fire. People have a tendency to pay attention when someone calls fire. They might not recognize it when you call for help, but they will definitely recognize it when you call for fire because people are looking to see if there's a fire. You'll have people looking in your direction. Many victims, especially those of the older generation, and I would include myself in that, although I don't always look very young, I am getting up there. We have a tendency to hold on to those things that we believe are ours and not the right of somebody else to take. And I understand the mentality. We find that many times with elderly females with their purses. That's your personal property, and we understand that there's an emotional attachment to it. But many times when that person comes to take that purse and we're holding on to it, we end up getting ourselves hurt. Lots of times victims are dragged, they're knocked down, they're pushed down. The assailant or the suspect is trying to overcome whatever resistance that you're giving, and they will do whatever they can to try and get that purse. So please, again, let it go. We cannot replace you. Always be aware of that we're paying attention. Little technical difficulties. Make sure we're paying attention. Many of us are on our phones. We talked about this in the last crime and safety meeting. We're on our phones. We're staring at maybe a book. We're looking at the packages that we're carrying, those types of things. Make sure that we're paying attention to our surroundings. When you're coming across people, when you're crossing paths with people, look them in the face, look them in the eye, say hello, be friendly. It gives you the opportunity to, one, maybe remember what an individual looked like should you become a victim. You can say, yeah, I looked that person in the eye. This is the facial hair that they had. They had these type of glasses on. They were wearing this type of hat. So if you're paying attention to your surroundings, that helps. The other part is that when an individual is looking to find someone that they want to victimize, it's a lot more challenging for that individual if you're someone who is aware of their surroundings. If you look like you're someone who is paying attention, many times that suspect, that assailant, doesn't want to be found. So if we can continuously be aware of our surroundings, that's going to put us in a better spot. Trust your instincts. Many times victims are followed. They're followed from the bank. They're followed from the store. When you're coming back from restaurants and things of that nature, where maybe someone might think, hey, this person has cash on them or some kind of money. So pay attention to that. Many times we'll hear that a victim might have been approaching their home, or they're walking in the alley, or they're someplace where they were maybe secluded, and they noticed that an individual was following them, but they continued on that same path. If you don't feel comfortable, remember, your safety is paramount. Your safety is paramount. If that means you got to cross the street, if that means maybe you duck into the store because it's a public place, just to let that person pass for your own peace of mind, then please do so. Maintain your personal space. Many times some of these pickpockets and robberies or theft from persons happen in closed spaces, bus stops, on the bus, when you're standing in line, maybe at a crowded store. And I know with COVID, we have the health department's kind of helped us out with that, and it's mandatory that we space, that we have that social distancing when we're in the stores. So that's very helpful, but we know that always isn't maintained. So just remember, if someone's kind of stepping closer to you or getting into that space where you're feeling uncomfortable, there's nothing wrong with taking a few steps back. Really try and make sure that your electronic devices are working and they're charged. A lot of times we'll grab our phones, we'll head out the door, we might get into an accident, or we may come across a situation where we become the victim of a strong-armed or an armed robbery or a theft or a pickpocket or something of that nature, and we try and call for help, or we try and call the police, and the next thing you know, our phone is dead, and we can't contact our family, and we can't contact a friend, we can't contact the police. So please make sure that when you're leaving the house that you have all the things that you need to be able to stay safe, and that they're operating and that they're fully charged. We're going to move on to garage burglaries. Again, we talked a little bit about this in the November crime and safety meeting. This is the time for people to be out. Those who burglarize garages, this is the time for them to burglarize garages. Part of that is because we're not really thinking about those tools and that equipment that we use during the summer times or during the warmer months. Our lawnmowers, other electric equipment or gas-operated equipment or battery-operated equipment that we use to do lawn work and yard work, we're not thinking about that, so we don't really pay attention. It's real easy for someone to gain access to our garages and the places that they're stored, remove them without you ever thinking about it, because you're thinking about your snow blower, you're thinking about those types of things. Some of the most common items that are taken: lawn equipment, bicycles, tools, and that includes everything from electric drills to air compressors, hand tools, all of those sorts of things. So some of the prevention tips that we have for you: most electric equipment will have a serial number on it. So if you can take a little bit of time to record serial numbers of some of the equipment that you have. A lot of times people try and sell these. They will take the items and then try and sell them either on eBay or try and turn them into a pawn shop, or sometimes they'll even set up in the parking lot of a hardware store and try and sell them to individuals that are coming in to buy legitimately sold tools. And sometimes people will take them up on that. If there's a piece of equipment that they were coming to buy at the store, but they can get it cheaper from the guy that's out in the parking lot, many times that's what's going to happen. So if you know serial numbers and things of that nature, many times we recover some of those items, but a lot of times we don't know who it belongs to. So it's very difficult for us to get it back to you. Consider adding a camera, if you can, to those areas where you store the tools. As a deterrent. Many times burglars are individuals of opportunity. If it's easy to do and they believe nobody's watching, then they're going to go ahead and do it. If we have a camera up and it looks as if we're going to see everything that they do, they may think about not burglarizing that place and may move on to the next one, or maybe even go to a whole completely different block. So if at all possible, try and, if you can, put cameras and things of that nature in. Adequate lighting always helps when places are dark. And again, like I alluded to just in that last sentence, if people don't think that you're watching, they're going to do all kinds of different things, and we want to try and prevent that. So if we can make some of those spaces light where everybody can see, there's a good chance that that next burglar is probably going to avoid that place. Leave your doors closed, especially if you're living in apartment buildings and places of that like. You may have a key or a passcode or some kind of card to get you into the building, but you need to be careful about who's entering after you. So always, one, get to know your neighbors so you know the people that live in your buildings, and then two, really kind of keep an eye out. Make sure that those doors are closing behind you so that nobody's following you, to kind of keep everybody safe. Moving on to vehicle thefts, and this is the time of year for vehicle thefts. Some preventative tips that we have, and the big one that we've talked about recently, especially in the winter months, is not leaving your vehicle on and running while you're away from it. If you're standing in your front window, if you're standing on your front porch, that's too far away from your vehicle. Someone can get into that vehicle pretty quickly and can take off, especially those that are started with keys. You're just asking for someone to come in and take it, so please don't leave your vehicle out and running. Nearly 20% of all our vehicles that are taken had keys with them. Hiding a second key inside that vehicle, although you're thinking this is smart in case I ever lose my key, I always know that I have another key to use to start my vehicle, you're asking for trouble. Someone can break the window, can get into your car, rummage around. Maybe they're only looking for change or maybe some item of value that's in there, and then they come across the keys to the vehicle and your vehicle will be gone. Always lock your vehicle. Over half of our vehicles are taken that were unlocked. It's 50%. That's a lot. Park in well-lighted areas. If you're in a well-lit area, again, just like with the burglaries, people don't want to be found out. People don't want to be seen committing their crimes. So if you can find a well-lit area to park in, one, it's safe for you, and two, it may prevent someone from taking that car. We talked about leaving your vehicle running and unattended. Do not leave valuables in plain view in your vehicle. You may not be able to carry all of it in at one time. You may be leaving it in the car for a particular reason, but let's not make it easy for the criminals to come and get our stuff. All it takes is for me or someone else who might want to get into your car to walk down the street, and they might not even be thinking about it, but they catch out of the corner of their eye, they see the computer that's sitting there, the laptop, or the game, or the phone, or whatever item of value that's just laying out. All it takes is someone to break that window, they're in your car, they've got your stuff. So lock things in the glove compartments, lock things in the trunk area. If you've got a locking mechanism somewhere else in the car, keep stow valuables in there, or cover things up with a blanket so people don't necessarily know what is in the car, so they're not tempted. If you can, park in a garage. If you have a garage, use it. Snow hasn't fallen yet, so this is a great time to try and clean out that garage, make some room. So if you can, park in a garage. Leaving the title, your registration title in your vehicle is another surefire way to have your vehicle stolen and possibly sold. So then it makes it even more difficult for us to get it back to you. Really be careful about that. Think about where you store that. I know with COVID right now there are certain regulations that don't have to be followed, but let's make sure that the information that we have regarding that vehicle stays in our hands. It doesn't get into the hands of someone else who can turn around and forge a signature maybe and end up selling that vehicle without you knowing it. We have a program in the city of Milwaukee, the CAT program, Catch Auto Thieves, where you can register your vehicle. So if you're an individual who doesn't drive between the hours of 1 a.m. and 5 a.m., you can register your vehicle with the city of Milwaukee through that program, Catch Auto Thieves, or CAT for short. And during those hours when our officers are patrolling and we see one of those vehicles driving past, we see that sticker because we know that it's registered with us, we might have contact with it. Just find out, hey, what's going on? You've given us consent to stop that vehicle. Many times our officers will be out patrolling and it may be 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and we'll see vehicles all over the city. It's a big city. So there's always lots of activity happening, but we don't always know that a vehicle is stolen. This at least gives us an opportunity to maybe have contact with that vehicle and make sure that either you're driving it or someone you said could drive it is driving it. Many times we will come across those vehicles, we stop it, and lo and behold, that person did not have permission to be driving that vehicle, and we can get it back to the owner before anything else really serious happens. Some of the vehicle security tips that we have: getting car alarms, that's always a good one. Steering wheel mobilization devices, the club, we've all heard of that. Brake immobilization devices, if you have a GPS tracking system like an OnStar or LoJack or some other type of program, those are always very good. Some of those programs will have a feature where you can call up the company and the company can hit a button or do whatever they do electronically that could shut that car down, and that way that person can't continue on with that vehicle. Obviously park in your garage if you have one, lock all your garage doors, lock your vehicle doors, park in well-lit areas, especially if you can find one that's monitored by a camera. That's fantastic. Don't leave your keys unattended around strangers. Try and have your keys with you, and then never leave your vehicle running and unattended. So we've had a stolen vehicle trend as of late, and the following vehicles are being taken in very, very high volume. So over the last month we've had specifically Hyundais and Kias that have been taken at a high volume. The models that are stolen the most: Hyundai Sonata, Elantra, Kia Souls, Kia Forte, Kia Sportages. The suspects, what they're doing is they're breaking the windows, they're getting into the vehicles, they are peeling up the steering columns, and they're being able to start the vehicles. We're not quite sure where they learned that from. This seems like one of those types of crimes that we knew about from the past, because we didn't have certain types of technology to stop that, but for whatever reason they found that they can still do it with these vehicles. So having something like a steering column lock or something like a club on your vehicle, if you have one, those are great options to try and prevent people from taking them. And if you own one of those vehicles that I mentioned, again, and I'll say them again, Hyundais and Kias, more specifically Hyundai Sonata and Hyundai Elantras, as well as Kia Souls, Kia Forte, and Kia Sportages. If you own any of those vehicles, please keep an eye out on them, and keep an eye out for your neighbors as well if they own them as well. We're going to take a look at some of the crime numbers from November. Our aggravated assaults, we had 87 in total, and that ranges from anywhere from shootings, to strangulations, DV related, child abuse, batteries, battery while armed, other gun related offenses. We had an increase for the month, a 2% increase, but we had a decrease, about a 24% decrease in the last 6 weeks regarding those types of crimes. We're trending in the right direction. Robberies, we had 26 armed robberies, 26 armed robberies, and then we had 7 strong armed robberies, a total of 33 robberies. For the month, we had a 45% decrease in our robberies, which is good. That's what we want to see, and hopefully we can continue that trend. For the 6 weeks, the last 6 weeks, we've had a 17% decrease. So that's also very promising. However, we are, again, running into our holiday season, our winter months, where we typically see an uptick in that. The district has put out a holiday presence patrol so that hopefully we can deter and prevent some of those types of crimes from happening. Burglaries, we had a total of 26 burglaries. And 6 of them were business related. 17 of those were residential. We had 2 garage burglaries, and we had 3, if you can believe it or not, 3 churches that were burglarized. Again, this is that season where we start to see kind of an uptick in those burglaries, especially as people start buying presents and they're storing presents to be able to give over Christmas, or they've wrapped them already and put them under the tree. Those houses, those residences can become targets because people know that there's brand new things in there, and so they'll go looking for them. Our burglaries over the last month, we had a 61% decrease in our burglaries. Unfortunately, we've had an uptick in the last 6 weeks. We've gone up about 40%. So again, please pay attention. There's vehicles maybe that you don't recognize that are driving around your neighborhood and are not delivering packages. That may be an indication that someone is looking through the neighborhood trying to find that house that either doesn't have lighting or doesn't have a camera, or maybe has a door that's not facing the public, or maybe has some windows that maybe looks like it's easier to get into. So those types of things. If you see something, we encourage you to call. You can always call us, give us a tip, or just say, hey, I'd like you to keep an eye out on this particular area. We think that someone might be casing it. Vehicle thefts, a lot. We had 89 total vehicle thefts for the month of November. 63 of those were taken without keys. 26 of them were taken with keys. part of that uptick are all those Hyundais and Kias that I talked about. They're easy to steal. They seem like there are targets of this particular group for whatever reason, maybe because they're easy to steal. Please keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on yours. If you have a way to park it in well-lit areas, places where there's cameras, if you can park it in a garage, or if you can use some kind of anti-theft device on it, I would encourage you to do so. We have taken it under advisement, and we have put out special patrols to try and deter in some of those areas where we're finding most of them are taken. We also have areas where we're finding them recovered, and so we're trying to see if we can't put some presence there and maybe catch the individuals as they're dropping them off. We've done a lit drop in some of the areas where they have been taken, kind of warning the citizens. So if you haven't gotten one, you can contact District 5, you can contact the CPU unit, and they can give you some information regarding. I believe we did put out a media warning too, just in general for the entire city regarding those types of things, because we're not the only district that has seen an uptick. But hopefully we can be that district that leads in preventing it or stopping it altogether. For our motor vehicle thefts, and this is an indication too, for the month we had a 114% increase, so it tells you that this is kind of ramping up. At 6-week change, we also had a 40% increase, so those are going up. Hopefully we can get a handle on it. Maybe we can find the individuals who are doing it, bring some kind of resolution that way, and stop you folks from having to worry about your cars. And as always, we encourage you to send us emails if you have questions regarding our Collins Agreement, also known as the ACLU Settlement Agreement, but it is the Collins et al. Agreement with the City of Milwaukee. And if you have any questions regarding our practices, our policies, regarding the traffic stops, field interviews, no action encounters, and frisks, please send them our way. I will try and answer your questions as best we can. We encourage everybody to participate in the bike theft reduction program that we have here through the City of Milwaukee and other entities called Bike Index. This is the perfect time to register your bike, especially when you don't have it out on the street. Get it registered now so that when it does get warmer and you are out and about on your bikes, you have that extra layer of protection. At the very least, we've done a really good job of getting bikes back to people once they've been taken, or if they've been taken. It's easy for us to kind of track that way. If you haven't registered it, it becomes a little bit more difficult. Please, we encourage you to join the Nextdoor app. There's lots of good information on there. The police department puts out information for you on the Nextdoor app. Your neighbors also share a lot of information. It's just a good way to kind of stay connected to your community. And we encourage you to join the District 5 Facebook. We also have a Twitter account, and we also have a YouTube account. I am getting used to that. I'm not very well versed, but I'm becoming better. So please take advantage of using those platforms, and we will try and put out more and more information using those platforms. Again, our next Crime and Safety meeting for 2021 will be January 5th, 2021. For now, it'll be virtually unless something changes. So very much the same type of format that we have right now. We'll see if we can't jazz it up a little bit, maybe find a way to make it a little smoother. But we hope that you join us again. I thank you very much for taking your time out of your day to click on this and to join us for our Crime and Safety. And I hope everyone has a very safe and healthy holiday, Christmas, and New Year. We will see you in 2021. Thank you.